I talked to Malone about this actually a little bit, the mass psychosis, and one of the things he said was just having talked about it, like giving people the lexicon or term to refer to this phenomenon that we're all susceptible to was very empowering, right?
Yes.
To just be able to step outside of it and be like, okay, this is something that can happen to me.
Oh yeah.
It just gives you the tool to deal with it more appropriately.
Yeah. I mean, William McKay wrote a book back in the 1800s, popular delusions and the madness of crowds.
Right.
And it chronicled the Dutch tulip thing. It chronicled the French John Law episode.
Mm-hmm.
And what do they say? Men go mad in crowds and collectively,
right?
And they regain their senses one by one.
Yeah.
And when reality comes roaring back, and I think we're in the regaining our senses piece right now, and it's because to me it's very, very obvious that fiat is failing.
Yes.
I mean, I have very little doubt in this, and I've really stuck my neck out because I could look like a total idiot and I could be completely wrong, but I sincerely believe that we have a hyperinflationary future coming at some point, outside, 18 years. And that's just because I'm saying that there's some fourth turnings that have lasted 30 years. And I think this one started in 2018. But I think more likely within 10 years. Because this monetary system is designed to fail. It has to fail.
Right.
And, there are just a few more steps left before it does. And things are happening more quickly.
Now, okay, so let's
Want to go there?
let's point on that, because I actually agree with you. I have a public prediction that the U.S. dollar is hyperinflated by 2035.
I agree with that.
And it's based on some other rates of hyperinflation historically, just kind of layered together. It's an estimate, so who knows? But here's what I want to ask about is, well, first of all, I assume you would agree that fiat currency inflation is a violation of private property.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's theft.
So if the psychosis is related to the rate at which we're violating private property, should we expect the mass psychosis to escalate as we print more fiat going into that hyperinflation?
Absolutely.
So things are going to get darker before
Sadly,
dawn.
I think they will. Sadly, I think they will. I mean, things are already pretty dark. I mean, it's, you and I have food on the table, right? Yeah. Your lower middle income and your gasoline's now $6. Your food's more expensive.
Yeah.
Your wages are going up at 5% a year. You're scared. Your medical care is totally out of control. I mean, you're scared, and you should be. And it's tragic. It's absolutely tragic.
Yeah, and it's just ridiculous, honestly, because even if you're rich, right? Whatever, top 1%, 0.1%, whatever. If the market self-destructs in a hyperinflation, everyone's suffering.
Well, that's
right?
the point. I mean, so you're worth $80 billion. Yeah. But all your employees hate you because you won't let them go to the bathroom, during their work shift. I mean, really? Really, Jeff? I mean, is that really how you want to run your company? I mean, I just, it's stunning to me. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. Some of the elites, the behavior of some of the elites. I mean, the nobility in France in 70 and 89, had nothing on these folks.
Yeah. So, okay. Maybe we'll just take a couple steps back. Things are pretty bleak. Looks like they might get bleaker. Where should we be? Like, through the lens of libertarian philosophy, which I guess Bitcoin is almost like a forcing function for that.
Absolutely.
It's like, Austrian economics was kind of this philosophical debate with Keynesian economics, but Bitcoin now makes it like a market test kind of thing.
Yes.
How do you think the world could look in a libertarian, Bitcoin-friendly world?
Oh, it could be.
Do you think I assume, I mean, obviously, who knows, but in the ashes of this hyperinflation that you and I anticipate, something like Bitcoin should also rise. So there's a very bright future beyond this middle ground that we don't know, is very uncertain. How do you consider that, think about that, explain that?
So I think your generation, the Jack Mahlers, the Marty Bents of the world, are going to be the hero generation that fixes this broken world. And I've studied a lot of hyperinflations, and they're horrible, right? They're horrible for wealth holders, particularly. They're actually somewhat less horrible for somebody in the middle of their career who has a good skill.
Right.
I mean, you're a plumber.
Yeah.
You have a house, you have a mortgage, you don't have a ton of savings. Currency gets wiped out. Well, guess what? People still need to have their toilets fixed.
Right.
Right. Everything reprices. You still got your house. You didn't lose it. Life goes on.
Yeah.
And in the history of hyperinflations, when you return to sound money, things reorganize pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Who loses? Bondholders. The mega rich, they lose a lot.
Yeah.
And perhaps they should. Yeah. I mean, they've created a lot of fiat at the expense of a lot of other people, and if they haven't been wise enough to put it in things that are sound money, they're going to lose it.
Yeah.
And so be it. I think we have a new political system that is much more libertarian, much more smaller, much more local. I think everyone is very, very terribly angry about what happened to them. I wouldn't want to be a politician. I mean, history is not going to be kind to any of these people. I mean, these are going to be the people who destroyed the old system. They're going to try and have a narrative that defends themselves, but everyone's going to see it. Everyone's going to see it, and we're gonna have term limits. We're gonna, I hope the United States holds together, but it might not.
Yeah.
It might become more regional or more state based. But I think what needs to happen is that people need to go back to the original concept of what a government should be. And my belief, and I think the libertarian belief, is that a government really just needs to be a fair referee in a game. That everyone more or less, prevent the known crimes, prevent murder, prevent theft, prevent, all the obvious things. I mean, just the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Have a system of courts and, police officers that, keep the game fair. And other than that, stay out of the way. Maybe to the degree there are foreign threats, maybe there needs to be some form of military, but, I think appropriately, I think maybe in 50 or 100 years, that could all be dialed down too.
Yeah.
Where you get every country, I mean, there could be broad agreement that nuclear weapons don't serve anybody in the human race, right. And so those could be abolished. You could have a case where, you have a very, very peaceful world. I see that. I think that will happen. I'm not sure it'll happen in my lifetime. I'm pretty sure most of that will happen in your lifetime, because we reached peak centralization. We got really good. I mean, I always like to look at it. It started with Henry Ford in the assembly line, right? I mean, pre that, we were a bunch of farmers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And what the Industrial Revolution kind of showed us that, you put a bunch of people together and you organize them in a particular fashion, man, you can get a lot of output by dividing things up. And I mean, it's unbelievable.
The division of labor.
The division of labor.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing what happened. Yeah. And we just kept pushing that as hard and hard. And, sure enough, First World War came along and they thought, it'll be horse charges. Well, no, it turns out you can kill a lot of people with machinery too. And you got so forth. And then Second World War came along and holy crap, we can really kill a lot of people.
Yeah.
When we're big organizations. A nuclear bomb proves, guess what? We can even destroy the entire planet.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I think humankind generally is probably coming to the conclusion that's not a good idea.
Right.
Right. We need to back away from that and go in the other direction. And the beautiful thing is there are two parts to this revolution as I see it. I think the two biggest innovations in the last 25 years, in my view, are, well, three. The microchip, which created all the technology.
Yeah.
The internet, which took away the narrative function from the New York Times and allowed everybody to get information.
Right.
And now Bitcoin, which has basically taken away the monetary function from government.
Yeah.
I think those three things are going to vastly improve the world. And I think these big corrupt organizations, they're just all going to fail.
Right.
And it's going to happen. You say 35. I think that's the outside time frame. I think in the late 2020s, like 27, 26, 27, 28. And I think people are going to be surprised by it because think of how one day the Soviet Union and Eastern Germany were just this big, powerful, monolithic thing that we were terrified of, right?
Yeah.
The next day, poof, they're gone.
Yeah.
I mean, the U.S. federal emperor has got no clothes, right? I mean, I can see it. You can see it. Russia's calling them on it. Other people can see it. What happens when everybody just kind of decides, there are 90 of us for every 10 of you that are living in the government system. We're not going to play anymore.
Right.
We're just not going to play.
So, yeah. Yeah, brilliantly said. You're bringing up some points here I want to double click on. So peak centralization, and now presumably the pendulum is going the other direction towards decentralization.
Right.
I talk a lot on this show about the sovereign individual thesis. I don't know if you
Yep, I've listened to it. Yeah, I know. And I'm very much in with being a sovereign individual.
Yeah. Do you prescribe to the idea that the very organizational model of the nation state itself could be, I don't, either dissolved or dramatically reformed as a result of this technological revolution?
At a minimum, dramatically reformed.
Yeah.
At a minimum. And yes, perhaps potentially dissolved.
Yeah.
I mean, borderless, et cetera. There's so much tradition and so much history. I think it's going to be in steps.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think we're going to go to that. Not in my lifetime.
Yeah.
But diminished. Oh yeah. Yeah. No, we're on the downswing.
Yeah.
And what I think will be very interesting to see is the way that certain nations adopt. Certain nations are going to look forward and certain nations are going to look backward.
Yeah.
And the looking forward nations are going to just kick ass.
Right.
Yeah. And it's going to become very apparent to everybody else that they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to move in that direction or be left behind. That's the game theory, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And then there's the migration, right? Talent, capital, and all that goes to where they're treated
all
best.
The talents, the capital's going to go where it's treated best. The talent's going to go where it's treated best.
Yeah.
And people are going to just demand it.
Yes.
That's the thing. I mean, part of what you got going on now is my generation, the boomers, are kind of hanging on to the privilege they've got.
Right.
But they're going to pass, and your generation is much more collective. I mean, the boomers were very selfish as a general rule, and your generation is much more concerned with the common good, not in a communistic sort of way, but just in a we've got to create something that works for everybody sort of way, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to become a much more prevalent thought pattern,